plan yet?
Halloween at Aunt Ethel's. This one is coming to us from High Flyer Films in the UK and is directed and written by Joseph Mazzaferro. And he directed the movie Anne that I have also reviewed on this channel. And this one actually stars Gail Yost, who once again starred in the movie Anne. And she stars here as Aunt Ethel herself. The movie also stars Madeline Murphy, Stephanie Town and Sean Michael Gloria. Now the logline for this one though is best described as Friday the 13th meets Porky's. Yes, indeedy. So what is this story? In a nutshell, sex, cannibals, witches and comedy. So we have this kind of weird old woman, Aunt Ethel, who lives in this kind of like old house, and there's rumours about this kind of small town about Ethel's kind of like backstory, and she is rumoured and, you know, urban legends that she has essentially kidnapped kids, killed them, and then served them as chocolatey treats to other kind of trick-or-treaters. And no one really kind of goes near this house, as she has this kind of like this kind of reputation, and it's actually established early on that she is actually doing these things. She is actually killing people, so there's no kind of real surprise there. But the actual movie focuses on this kind of really these two female friends, played by Madeline Murphy and Stephanie Town, and also the boyfriend of one of them, played by Sean Michael Gloria. And really these kind of trio of kind of friends kind of want to investigate a little bit further this kind of the legend of Aunt Ethel's house, and they may even have some ulterior motives for kind of going into there, and decide one evening after kind of much deliberation that they are going to go in and you know, maybe try and put an end to the reign of terror caused by Aunt Ethel. So the plot of the movie sounds relatively kind of straightforward in regards to a kind of horror movie, but the movie is probably more of a comedy more than anything else. So let's talk about a little bit more about what works with this movie first of all. So this movie is more of a comedy, and there are some funny moments in this movie, particularly for me from Stephanie Town's Mandy character, who is hilarious and a breath of fresh air. Now, this movie kind of has the cliche characters. So Stephanie Town's Mandy character is the busty, blonde, slutty character that you'll get in most horror films. But what I liked about this one in particular is they actually lean properly into it. And she actually owns the fact that she is kind of this kind of like the kind of the slutty character, and kind of makes no apologies for it, and is actually quite funny with it. But she's also still kind of got her friends back. So even though that sort of those kind of character traits sometimes mean that she's the kind of like the bitchy one, the unlikable one, she still actually kind of has a kind of friend played by Madeline Murphy's back. So I kind of quite like that. So it was kind of a little bit of a different take on this kind of tried and tested cliche of a character, and also Madeline Murphy is more of the kind of she's the sweet innocent one, of course, who you know is going to end up being the final girl. And again, you know, I mean, there's nothing quite as revolutionary about her character, to be fair, but it's, you know, it's played well, and you do feel like these two are actually could be friends. They're not kind of, their personalities do kind of mesh, and there is some quite witty dialogue between the two of them, especially in regards to revelations that Manny's character has had about guys and stuff like that. I thought it was quite fun. The way they just kind of matter-of-factly dropped into the conversation actually tickled me quite a lot. And the comedy is kind of subjective, but I actually found some of the kind of the jokes here pretty funny. For example, again, Mandy, the character Mandy, she tries to get rid of her boyfriend because, you know, she wants to hang out with her friend, and then almost immediately sort of phones him up and kind of wants him to do something for her, which I found was quite funny in the way it's played. He agrees to it and she immediately hangs up. Some quite just kind of like little touches of comedic kind of brilliance, I thought, here actually. I actually found some of the kind of the jokes actually pretty funny. They didn't all work, and we'll come on to that. But yeah, there were some kind of funny scenes here, and it obviously is taking a bit of a jab at kind of certain horror cliches. Other things I would say that I enjoyed about this movie, there's actually quite a shocking climax of this movie. I was actually surprised it went in a particular direction, and this isn't going to be for everyone certainly, but it's a Halloween boob fest bonanza. Yes, there is lots of TNA here from lots of young nubile beauties, so that will certainly appeal to many people. Okay, so what doesn't work? Right, so we've mentioned the comedy, and I think certain characters do a good job here, but certain characters do not, and this is going to be solely focused on the character of Ethel herself, who is a poorly misjudged character, I have to say. There's lots of visual gags with her about what she's doing with kind of like body parts and things like that, and to me they all fell flat. I also felt like they spent way too much time with this character as an antagonist. Even though this is a horror comedy, you kind of you want to feel like a sense of mystery, so to speak, or intrigue. But we spend a lot of time with Ethel just kind of like milling around in her home, kind of doing stuff. And ironically, if you've ever seen the movie Aaran, which was by the same director and the same actress here, that was just about a woman who is milling around at home doing stuff, and it ultimately was quite boring. And it's the same thing with this movie, not quite to that degree admittedly, but nonetheless you kind of like, I mean, it's played more for laughs, this one, but to me those scenes could have been cut out and would have made the movie have a little bit more to it, because I just felt like it revealed very right in the early, this is why I'm not worrying about a spoiler, that she really is a killer. And then we just see her kind of do like loads of stuff at her house involving just kind of like chopping up body parts and stuff like that. And I get they wanted to have a few gore scenes, but you know, it didn't work for me. And on the subject, staying with actual Ethel herself, for some reason, and again it's the same thing with Anne, she's wearing this awful wig, which looks like a wig, and it's distracting. To be quite honest with you, and I gotta say as well, it's pretty unclear how she overpowers people. She's not really a kind of supernatural being or a kind of a hulking serial killer, yet she seemingly overpowers like teenage guys, and it doesn't make sense how she does that. It's never really kind of explained, and in fact a lot really is not explained. We do get a kind of a little bit of exposition in regards to a certain curse, but it's fairly unclear about what that actually means. The humour itself, I feel some people will find it funny, but this is humour straight out of their sex comedies of the 80s and 90s. And in today's kind of Me Too, audience, I don't know how this is going to fly. I mean, there's literally a scene at the beginning of the movie where someone cuts a hole in the bottom of a trick-or-treat bag and sticks their penis through, and obviously the girl's kind of dipping into it. That literally is the same joke that was in one of these like sex comedy films of like the 80s. And nowadays, I don't know if that kind of stuff flies. I mean, you had it in stuff like American Pie, which I think was kind of the last type of films that really sort of got away with it, where it was more socially acceptable. In 2019, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but I can imagine for a wider audience, some people may well kind of think, well, that's kind of rape or something. Anyway, so yeah, the humour is maybe a little bit misjudged, and I feel a little bit out of its time zone. But I feel the main issue here is the pacing, because when push comes to shove, there's not a lot of story in this movie, and it just spends a lot of time with kind of Ethel kind of fannying around doing stuff at her home, and then we have our kind of like our teenage kind of characters. I mean, like I've said, some of those scenes are funny, and I did quite enjoy those scenes for sort of comedy scenes, but it doesn't really drive the plot forward a lot of the time. So it's going to be a matter of taste in regards to do you like this kind of sense of humour, but for a horror fan, I don't think there's much here. I mean, there's a few prosthetic effects, but I don't think the actual horror elements work at all in this movie, if I'm honest. So watch this if you kind of like the kind of maybe the raunchy sort of comedies. But for a horror fan, then I wouldn't really recommend it. The horror doesn't work, and I don't think the horror elements are just not played like a horror movie. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. And I give that really for some of the comedy, particularly from Stephanie Towns' character, who I thought was absolutely watchable. Very, very attractive as well, but just funny character. So 4 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.